Hey folks, this is Rick Barron, Lincoln Vlogs, and today I want to post and talk about my one of my other books. It's called Your Life Path. Who Are You? And it's available on Amazon Kindle in both ebooks and paperback. And you can go to toopredictable.com, my website, for further information, but also through Amazon and Rick T. Barron. You'll see my other publications there as well. Quite a number of them on numerology, politics, and business as well. I am also a business broker. But what I'm going to be reading from is chapter 1 in my book here, Your Life Path. Really kind of the intro to the rest of the book, which will give you some perspective on life, what your life path is, and give you some other comparatives from the historical records so that you can make your own determinations. Life path is not necessarily your career, but where you are most attuned in nature. What are your strengths and weaknesses, the positive and negatives aspects of your numerological makeup, your construct, and how you fit into the matrix. So please take some time to look that over. Go to my website, and again, this is chapter 1 called Life. Life is not one thing. It's a complex set of sciences and numbers functioning within a layered strata of dynamics. Astronomy, biology, genetics, evolution, time and space are all occurring naturally within a rhythmic pattern, with or without our contribution. Man is an integral part of that constant, only arriving in this world relatively recently. Does not matter much at this juncture how we dropped in. We are here now, blending into the dynamics of nature. Yes, we have made our mark on the world for good or evil. We are, similarly to the dinosaurs. They made their mark on that world. One can only imagine confronting a T-Rex in one's backyard swimming pool long before serious weapons were invented. Man also flows with this rhythmic pattern or vibration naturally. We are not different than the rest of the world in this regard. Man simply exists on a different plane with a higher level of intelligence, and thus early human communication began. All living creatures communicate in one shape or another. We are not completely unique. However, our brain power raises our species to a whole new level. If polled, other creatures on the planet may provide viable arguments or challenges to our proffered assumptions. Perhaps the day will come when we can decode those communications between species other than man, and in turn utilize their methods to our advantage. Animals seem to sense danger as well as illness and sense that are beyond our capacities. Now, someone just needs to create the app that would work on our Androids and we will listen. But I digress. A drawback of nature in this randomness is the extreme which we cannot control, like continental drift, pole shifting, solar flares, to name a few. In the meantime, back at the farm, births are indiscriminate, right up until the exact time and date of one's birth, then all bets are off. Most humans do not know this, and that is because births continue to be arbitrary. On one hand, we have too many humans on the planet. Yet many Homo sapiens continue to dwell, live, and die in remote parts of the world, practically invisible to others. We will not dwell on those subjects for the moment until we get our own house in order. When born, man is essentially dropped into a space on the planet seemingly at will. The landing or arrival can be planned or unplanned. At best, it's planned and prepared for by the family for generations. In some cases, names and expectations are predetermined, even written down in some historical record accordingly. in present-day circumstances, mankind has drifted from much of that rigid planning and control, although it still exists, perhaps not to the degree it used to. When abortions and other forms of murder are added to the mix, we devolve out of control. If one were to focus solely on the headlines in today's news, there seems to be two glaring mistakes man is making, one of which are the adult school teachers, male and female, who apparently believe that open and notorious sex education of our youth in real time is paramount, required curriculum. I believe my ex would argue that they are going to do it anyway, so let them have at it. The other bizarre behaviors are for the parents, male and female, single or married, to leave their young children locked up in the family vehicle during the extreme summer heat, predictably to the demise of the helpless child. Hell, the Democrats are eating each other. Given these very strange circumstances of humans at their worst, one can state this fact: we are lost as a species. This changing generational condition is also seen occurring naturally in the expansion of the universe as well as our own planet. The family unit appears to be splitting apart for a variety of reasons, but most certainly naturally and randomly. Families and nations are subdividing while new technologies are conversely bringing us together. Man does not have complete control of these matters yet, and so for many of us, we are adrift in the world trying to make sense of it all. The chasm between the masses of educated and uneducated grows exponentially, and yet there remains little focus on the significance the effect of this has on the species. As for our focus, here becomes, who are we? How did we get here where we find ourselves at birth? Who are these people that suddenly appeared before me in this home or in this hut? Maybe the back of a car. I don't know them. They don't know me, but somehow we are supposed to be related. Huh. What, are you crazy? Good luck with that theory, more like the black sheep theory many of us have come to understand. This discussion then logically leads us to who we are and what is exactly in this environment into which we were dropped. In my two previous books, I detailed the lives of two sets of famous people to easily demonstrate how all of this works. Within those writings, parallels were drawn as a comparative to the influence of those early environs upon the subject, which is what we will discuss and bring to bear on the reader herein. This is sort of like herding. Through previous writings and comparisons, the reader will be able to draw their own conclusions based on the historical evidence presented. All education should be imperative, not solely sex education. These facts presented will place one's individual world into perspective and allow ourselves to make a comparative to others who surround our day-to-day lives, whether that life is in a castle or in a prison. Where we are at birth is a critical piece of the criteria. Each place of birth, castle, or prison has its own set of issues to overcome, although this writer would argue that if given a choice, the castle would be a first choice. Just saying. If one's place of birth is viewed positively, not negatively, then this mindset will affect one's path in life. Because of the random timing and place of birth, this condition or perspective may not be perceived as such, obviously, but it soon will hopefully become evident as the child proceeds along the path. The reason for this is because the world that we have been dropped into was not of our choosing, and for the time being, it's all we know. Relativity, a common scientific term. Perhaps at some time in the future, when man has exhausted the need to continue killing one another, each human could complete a digital technology survey of our first 18 years on the planet. 2 9-year cycles of man. Within that survey, one can gauge not only each person's perception of life to that point, but also would be to understand a conditional environment that person was raised. Much of this is happening already with the consumer-driven giants of Google and Amazon, but this would go much deeper. Those are material needs and desires, way too addictive. Try taking a cell phone from a teen. In this scenario, one is referring to conditions that surround us and those that are shaping our behavior. Have we given serious thought to who we are and where we are going? Many humans do not have the luxury of time to think. Survival takes precedence. Perhaps this is asking too much of man. Sports and drugs, cars and sex, and which bathroom to use are where we are now. Maybe we could do better. Some questions that could be asked are these. Where exactly were you physically born? Were there any extenuating circumstances surrounding the birth? Was it a C-section, and why? Were you considered premature? How's your health? Are there any specific conditions that you need to be aware of? Did your parents plan your birth? How long were they married before you were born? Were you married? Were you named before your birth? Are the grandparents living? Did they have an influence over your path in life? Were your parents married at the time? Were they single? Now that you're 18 years of age, are your parents still married or are they divorced? Was there alcohol or drug abuse, legal or illegal, in the home? Did either of your parents have a criminal record? Was the level of education of your parents and what was the level of education of your parents and grandparents? Do you know your full date of birth? Do you have an understanding of numerology and astrology? What are your likes and dislikes? Do you have a sense of what your innate talents may be? Do you know where you are going? How does your life compare to others around you? Do you feel secure and confident in your surroundings and your life to date? Are you optimistic about your future? On a scale of 1 to 9, 9 being the best, how would you rate your life? Your neighborhood, your schools, your achievements, your chances of succeeding? Some may consider these questions too intrusive, and perhaps they are. However, if we do not take the time to consider the facts, we may never know who we are and where we are going. Random, indiscriminate behavior is never good for humans. The manner in which we live today is not a way in which to elevate the standards of humans. We're all familiar with Osama bin Laden, who was born into a wealthy Saudi Arabian family. And yet, OBL rejected all of those trappings for life in a cave, in spite of the fact that it was his family's very wealth that made him the determined, fanatical leader he became, like Darth Vader to the dark side. This author has not bothered to delve into bin Laden's numerological makeup to this point. However, the important point here are the choices the man made along the path, including how best to proceed. Completely understanding the environment one is dumped into, fully comprehending the positive and negatives of each number, and weighing the consequences of those decisions as to which path are all part of the lessons herein. In the case of OBL, one could ask, was it because of all of this wealth within his family that he chose to virtually reject all of its pleasures, or was it in spite of all the wealth? One would need to know more to draw a reasonable conclusion. However, the man did choose to marry and have children, thus carrying on the traditions of lineage and family. Therefore, he did not completely reject aspects of his early life, as one would normally expect in this case of such radical adult behavior. Please take some time and observe where, how, and under which circumstances one has entered this world. Know the beginning point of your life, the drop zone, so that one can better prepare to build from that mark. Finally, understand that you were born into this family with no guarantees, no plans, and certainly no instructions through no fault of your own. The direction one should choose early on, ideally, is to come from the parents. Depending on your answers to the questions above, one can quickly understand some of the disadvantages one must overcome right out of the gate, thus demonstrating the importance of the tools being provided herein. We now begin with the life path and the numbered days in which one is born, a date stamp and number which will never change, but you will carry it with you for your entire life, regardless of how many cycles one lives. Thank you. Again, check out toopredictable.com and let me know what you think. I appreciate it. Thank you.